Microtransactions are in-app purchases designed to benefit the player's game, even through cosmetics or game-breaking changes. A great example of this would be Activision, a company which owns major games such as Call of Duty and Overwatch, with fan bases so powerful they're willing to spend their entire life savings on the video games. You've likely heard about a video game called Fortnite, which since its release in late July 2017 has generated $1 billion from microtransactions and has continued growing ever since. Children, the demographic most likely to buy microtransactions, usually don't ask their parents' permission beforehand, with these purchases being only 1 or 2 clicks away. It means you should monitor your card to make sure your child hasn't used it yet. For a more in-depth view, here's what a psychologist has to say about the mental side of it. We're here with Simon to discuss the effects of microtransactions. So if someone was to grow up spending money on microtransactions, could that turn into a grey addictions in the future?
Yes, as we're growing up, we're sort of setting down the patterns of behaviour, and there's a lot of controversy over microtransactions within video games at the moment, saying that it's encouraging children to develop addictive patterns of behaviour. In the same way that people have linked use of energy drinks in children to use of drugs in later life, it's whenever you're using something to get a feeling, to get a reward, that can start to become ingrained in your mind. And the features of things like loot boxes in video games have some of the similarities of gambling and addictive behaviour in later life as well. So often giving children the first go for free, just like any sort of drug pusher might, just to get people hooked in. Also that feeling of, just thinking just one more go and I might get the right reward or right prize. And also that feeling of uncertainty, you don't know what you're going to get. There's always just that little pull to have another go. So yeah, it certainly can set up these behaviours that could be carried on in later life.
And what advice would you give someone that has a gambling or microtransaction addiction?
Okay, there's a few different ways to deal with that. One of the most interesting ways is narrative therapy, where you look at the individual child who has realised this is a problem. Sometimes they'll only start to realise that as a parent gets a huge credit card bill. There's been cases where people have 700,000 quid credit card bills coming in, just made up of all these microtransactions. And then if the child realises that this is a problem, then they can try and look at what is the game doing for them, what do they get out of it, and tell them, see what the story is, and see if they can apply that to their real life. So narrative therapy tries to get the child to retell a story. They could look at what have you done in the game where you work together with others, where you manage to teamwork and achieve a goal. I'm sure they'll have done that in many of these games. Then they can try and see how they can do that in their real life. So starting to get the skills that they've developed and put them into real use is what narrative therapy is about. Also, you could have things like cognitive behavioural therapy, where when that impulse to bet, to buy another loot box, to get another upgrade comes, just to sort of realise that the reward, the little buzz, the rush of excitement that you get from purchasing that goes away quite quickly. It's an irrational belief that you're going to feel better off it in the long term, so slowly we can challenge those ideas.
And finally, what could be some advice for parents when giving their children permissions to purchase in-game microtransactions using their parents' credit card?
Yes, so some advice. I guess it's to perhaps put a budget on it. Say, like each month maybe I'll allow you £10 or £20 for these transactions, and use it wisely, spread it out rather than spending it all in one go. So start, or perhaps maybe they could earn that money around the house. Just try and see that currency has a lot of work to it. To get £10 could well be an hour's hard work for somebody. So if the child starts to understand that, especially as so many of the in-game currencies like lapis or whatever in Final Fantasy is, if they say 5,000 of that, it doesn't sound like anything and you don't know what it is, but if they realise that's probably about £30, which is a lot of money, then they start to really equate it with the real world. Maybe getting that link between the real world and the computerised world might be a good thing to do.
Alright, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Give you something to think about. Thank you for watching. Make sure to keep an eye on your child's phone usage.